Let's watch our likes, and actuallys.
Oh, fuck me. Okay. And 3, 2.
Hi, Dee.
Hi, Dee.
How was Tokyo? Did you bump into Japan's Zodiac Killer?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, Tokyo was amazing. I need to say though, although I did try to forget that little tidbit of info you gave me in the last episode about a Japanese Zodiac Killer.
Who's out? Who's free?
Who's out? I was paranoid the whole time I was there, but thankfully I did not.
Good.
I can't wait for you to vacation somewhere and me be like, did you hear about the lizard killer?
The lizard killer.
Yeah, like if you're in the Bahamas or something, I'm going to create something so crazy just so that you feel the paranoia that I felt in Tokyo.
The lizard killer.
I don't know.
So where in the world are you now?
I am currently back in London. I feel like I've taken this podcast on a world tour in the past 4 episodes, from Michigan to Myrtle Beach, Atlantic City to London.
Yeah.
So I'm back in London. I head back to the States tomorrow. I'm starting rehearsal again for another show. So here we are, and we're filming another podcast in a different country.
That's so cool.
How's Mommy Land?
The kids are finally better. I'm finally better. We've just all been cooped up for way too long. And I'm pretty sure every single time you call specifically, my kids reach like a whole new level of feral. I don't know what happens. They get this signal. It's like, Uncle Drew's calling. Let me go get stuck in an Amazon box. So you're on London time. I am what is sleep anymore time. This truly will be our best episode yet.
I think so too.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Hi, everyone! Welcome to the Forensic Files Duo podcast. For anyone new here, I'm Drew. I started this podcast knowing literally nothing about true crime.
I'm Danielle, and I've already ruined Drew's worldview by episode 4.
That's true.
Just a little recap about who we are. We've been best friends for 20 years. We competed in an acting club called Forensics in high school. We spent the last 20 years telling people it had nothing to do with forensic science.
And now we're just leaning into it and making it all about forensic science by recapping, reviewing, and Danielle occasionally correcting the TV show Forensic Files.
A show Drew originally thought was about aliens and ghosts.
Forensic Files and X-Files are very close titles. Come on.
It's truly the cornerstone of our podcast brand at this point, so we're just gonna own it.
Honestly.
Yep. Okay, so Drew, what is our drink today from Grandpa's Little Black Book that I am almost done with?
It's called the Bee Bite. It is 1.5 ounces of rum, 1 little tablespoon of granulated sugar, 3/8 ounce of lime juice, and a 3/4 ounce of orange juice. Do you like it? You don't like it?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
But I'm drinking it.
Okay, you guys, so we are actually changing it up today. You took notes, I took notes, but we didn't go over them together this time, which is a little scary for me, but I think this is going to be fun.
I think it should inspire quite a delightful disaster for editing later. So we had Drew pick the last 2 episodes so he could, get a general idea of the show and get a little more familiar with true crime TV like this. What do you think, Drew? Do you think you're more familiar now?
I am getting there. It's 2024 and I'm going to learn a lot. But as we've stated before, we're eager to make this platform more impactful than simply recapping what is already available to watch.
Yeah, and so we want to highlight the evolution of the show Forensic Files, the advances in forensic science, the evolution of true crime media.
And Danielle will, of course, correct, update, and address problematic elements because she will have none of it.
Right. So instead of bouncing around from one season to the next, our episode recaps are going to alternate between the oldest available episode that we haven't yet covered to the most recent, meaning like the one at the very, very end of the Forensic Files franchise, alternating each week until we finally get to the middle of the Forensic Files franchise. How do we feel about this, Drew?
This is going to confuse me. But I think I can jump on board with this because I'm going to go back and forth from learning a lot of the information of how things have changed as these cases have been later on in the years to like what it was before and how a lot of things were not so advanced. And I really hope my brain can keep up. I really do. Oh my gosh.
I personally am a little nervous because there are a lot of tough episodes that I'm not sure how I feel about giving more attention, or ones about kids that will be super tough. But just looking at how much fact checking and updates we've given for just the first 3 episodes we did, I think it could be helpful to provide that same context for the rest of them. No?
I think so, 100%. I mean, it will also allow us to provide the right facts / updates as we truck along. Now, for our regular disclaimer, we understand that we will be discussing a lot of sensitive topics, so although we may laugh at times, please remember that we are laughing looking at ourselves and ourselves only. We are not making light of what the victims and their families have gone through and may continue to be going through.
And in an effort to use the public's overall interest in the show Forensic Files and leverage the power of digital media, once the episode coverage is over, we will highlight 2 missing person cases, a case that's currently on the BIA's Missing and Murdered Indigenous People database and another on the Black and Missing Foundation's website. Okay, let's get into today's episode.
Okay, this is episode 2 from season 1 and is called The Magic Bullet. It first aired on October 17th, 1996. The events in this episode actually take us back to Dallas, Texas, but keep us in the 90s.
We are discussing the tragic death of 14-year-old Leland Harold Trey Cooley, and he is referred to as Trey.
At the Dallas Pistol and Revolver Club in 1991, Trey Cooley, a young spectator, was watching a shooting competition seated behind an air gun range. He was struck and killed by a stray bullet. This is how ballistics, lasers, and forensic animation solved the riddle of the magic bullet.
This episode is not on Peacock or Hulu, but you can find it on YouTube. We are following the list of episodes that Wikipedia has listed to ensure that we just stay on track, because each streaming platform that has Forensic Files episodes, it just all seems to have different orders for each season. It's really confusing. They each have different orders and different season numbers. Like on Amazon Prime, they have seasons 16 and stuff, and there is no season 16 in Forensic Files, but it's episodes from like season 2. So it's just really confusing. So just to have one thing that we follow, we're going to follow the Wikipedia list of all of the episodes. Right. So let's discuss this reenactment.
Oh, Lord. This reenactment. Okay, I always talk about filters, and I don't understand why filters are so necessary in these true crime TV shows, because we get it.
Right after the intro, we learn about Sweet Baby Trey. And we learn that he played the cello, he played baseball, he was a Boy Scout, and they say him and his dad were best friends.
In the first, 30 seconds, Butch, who is his dad, just starts crying.
His dad just breaks my heart into a million pieces.
We learned that his dad and him have one of the best relationships a father and son could have.
Yeah. Everything then very quickly changes. The music, the filter, it's now back to black and white, and there's a literal record stop just to, snap us back into it and let us know the next 20 seconds are going to be really sad. Peter's tone even changes, as if he needs us all to know what's coming for us.
But I do love Peter's tone.
September 29th, 1991. Butch Cooley woke early that Saturday morning, then went to wake Trey. The two shared a passion for shooting. Butch was judging a competition. He gave Trey a choice to sleep in or tag along. Trey chose to go with his father.
In the reenactment, we see Trey getting woken up by his dad asking him if he wanted to go to the gun range. I kind of was taken back because in this reenactment scene, it felt like the actor who was playing Trey made it seem that Trey didn't want to wake up. Like he wanted to stay in bed.
Butch tells us that Trey started shooting when he was 7. And then Butch, he just loses it. He pulls himself back together, but I feel like there's just a lot of unsaid words behind the words that Butch does get out. And I think his pain, it's enough. So I don't have any commentary on that. Just his pain is very palpable.
You can still see that this is a very fresh wound for him.
So Trey wanted to be a pistol competitor. We learned that he was pretty good at it. But on this day specifically, he was not competing. He was just volunteering, and he's running the results from judges to the official scorer. Talk about a Boy Scout.
I didn't know that competitive pistol was a thing. Like, I didn't know that was a thing, that you can compete in pistol shooting. Did you?
I did. I learned that a little bit later in life, though, because I married a man from the South, so.
Got it. And we are in the South in this, so that makes sense.
Yes, this is in Texas. So I learned a little bit more about this world. I grew up, with hunters in my family and whatnot, but this whole competitive shooting and all of that is very new to me. So for anyone that isn't familiar with competitive shooting, the Olympics describe sports shooting as the use of a firearm to hit a target with a bullet. I was like, okay.
Period.
Period. These competitions involve proficiency tests of accuracy, precision, and speed in shooting.
Interesting.
Yeah. The popularity of the sport grew in English-speaking countries with the formation of the National Rifle Association, which can burn in hell, in 1859, which originally met in Wimbledon, London.
Weird.
Yep. So that's a little history for you.
Even after the facts, I'm still not a fan of it.
That's okay.
Guns scare the crap out of me. So this episode was kind of, I don't know, a little bit of a trigger. We'll get to that story later.
Okay, so right now, Peter is describing what Trey is doing, but the reenactment is broken up into pieces. It's not like the other episodes where it's like one big reenactment. In between assignments, Trey decided to take a break from the heat, sit inside what is referred to as the air gun building. He's sitting near two women that were judging the events, and he was just behind the people that were shooting pellet and BB guns, and the most I know about these guns is literally from A Christmas Story.
You'll shoot your eye out.
Oh no, it was the classic mother BB gun block. You'll shoot your eye out.
I mean, I have a crazy story about a BB gun, which is my brother, when he was, I want to say like he was 10 to 12, he got a BB gun for Christmas. This is going to make my dad sound not smart, but my dad is a very smart man. But my mother told him not to do this, but he took my brother downstairs to the basement and put up a mattress. Oh no. A mattress that we weren't using, and he had my brother stand back and it was like shoot into the mattress just to get a feel of the BB gun, and he shot into the mattress. What happened? The BB bounced off the mattress and hit my brother in the eye.
Oh my God, I shot my eye out.
Are you serious?
Yes, and I was downstairs watching from very far away. I mean, this is bad of me to say this, but I ran upstairs laughing. I was like, Mom told you so!
That is very close to the plot line of A Christmas Story. That is.
That really didn't register for me until just now.
So it's only the women's scream that alerts everyone that something bad has happened when we see this in the reenactment. So in true OG Forensic Files or medical detectives fashion, we see images that I don't think we need to see.
Correct.
Yeah, the director really didn't seem to remember that this happened to a real boy, and he's a boy.
Right.
They show us the bullet hole with blood coming out of reenactment Trey's temple, and his baseball hat has, this tiny hole in it. Words would have been fine. I don't need to see it.
But also, I felt like the two women that were in this reenactment scene, you might as well have given them a martini and put them by a poolside, because it looked like they were straight up chilling and they weren't judging a competition.
So Butch is only a few yards away. Of course, he rushes to Trey. He immediately knows his son is gravely injured.
Now in the episode, we meet Trey's mom.
Trey's mom.
You see her talk about when Butch calls her and tells her that there's been an accident at the gun range.
She's like, I thought maybe he cut his foot or his hand. It's like she's still going through it and doesn't realize that it happened, which I can relate to. Like, oh, it just breaks your heart. This whole episode is really hard. It's really heavy and it's really hard.
The hardest part for me watching that was when the response from Butch was, everything is going to be okay. He's going to be fine.
I know.
That was hard.
Yeah. And I could hear Trey Cooley, that's Trey's mom. I could hear in Tony's voice, she's got that very sweet Southern, everything's going to be just fine.
Yep,
that is not a Texas accent, but I am 100% not this mom. I am worst case scenario mom. It's a problem. I'm in therapy. I'm working on it. But if Oliver's school even calls me while he's there, immediate panic. Then I answer it and it's some stupid automated message about the lunchroom menu or something. And I'm just like, I need to go take an anxiety pill or something. If Blake were to call me and be like, Oliver's going to the hospital, there was an accident at the gun range,
I would have dropped the phone, been in the car, already at the hospital.
Drew's head's out the window wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. There's been an accident!
But bless Tony, because you can tell she is a good mom. In this episode, that's the only interview we see from her.
I know. It was very much on Butch, which is fine.
Right. And the next interview that we see is the interview with Butch. And he then goes back and talks about how this was his only son. And then he just couldn't even get through the next sentence and starts breaking down. And I honestly, at this moment, I was like, I feel for this man. And we aren't even 5 minutes into this episode.
I know.
Yep.
Trey was actually seated in a designated safety area, which makes this all very much more confusing for everybody.
Trey Cooley was seated in the club's designated safety area. It was an accident that shouldn't have happened.
There's so many things in this episode that I was like, is that safe? I don't think any area in a gun range, especially this one, can come across as a safety area. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think people will some people might disagree with that. I just think when you have humans involved with anything, there is room for error.
But let's talk about this. Let's talk about the safety area, because in the reenactment video, the safety area is just a little plastic chair against a doorway. This is not a safety area. This is barely a seating area.
So now we meet Detective Tom Pease and David Taylor.
Correct. For the first time, I feel like out of all episodes that we've been recording, this is the first time I feel that the detectives are actually a little bit more on it than others have been.
Okay.
Do you feel that way?
Well, I'll get to that at the end. I have an opinion about that.
Okay. I'm probably wrong. wrong.
No, I agree. The way they were presented on this episode, I would 100% agree until I found an article. So just put a pin in that.
I'm going to put a pin in that, then take that back, and we're going to address that later.
What I just have in my notes is can we please stop seeing the reenactment?
Yes.
They do this, and this is not the last time we see this reenactment.
We're not even 5 minutes into the episode, and I think we've seen the reenactment shooting twice now.
I was wondering maybe because of how many times they show the reenactment and he is supposed to only be 14, maybe this is why it's not on streaming platforms.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe because this is a 14-year-old. When they were reviewing all the content, they were like, this is not an image the public needs to be reminded of.
Right.
So who knows? But anyways, the detectives set out to investigate where the bullet came from and whether this was intentional or an accident. A little backstory is Butch Cooley spent 2 decades as a state trooper.
The reason why this episode is kind of slightly triggering is because, do you remember in high school when I got suspended?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was right before homecoming.
You couldn't go to homecoming,
I couldn't go to homecoming. You know when you get frustrated with someone and you say, I'm going to kill you if you don't stop? I said that to this person when we had our musical auditions for A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and I got the role that he wanted. And he kept complaining to me that I must have done something to get the role. And I just said, oh, can you just stop? I'm going to kill you. This person went to the principal. And because my dad was in law enforcement and a police officer and I had access to guns, he made a claim to the principal saying he was afraid that I was going to bring in a gun and actually kill him. I just remember going into the principal's office, and even the announcement came over like, Drew Reese, you're requested at the principal's office. And I went there so confidently because I thought I had done something so good. Like, I thought I must have done something really great in honors, or I don't know. And then the principal opened the door and my dad was in his police uniform sitting at the end of the conference table, and I just knew I was in some sort of shit. And I was like, what is going on? And I just remember my dad coming over to me and saying, what on God's green earth do you think you're doing by going around saying you're gonna shoot someone? It took me a second to remember. First of all, I never said I'm gonna shoot someone. To be fair, I guess, I don't know, but having access to a gun as a parent who is involved in some sort of law enforcement, it can create problems outside of the household that are not needed for the kids.
You know, I do understand how we can't say those things because of your dad's position. You said this thing that's common in kids' vernacular and it was used against you, and that is wild.
This was frustrating, yeah.
To see him expose his kid to that so young. I could understand those feelings for sure. That's warranted.
I was always around someone carrying a gun in my family for their job, but it didn't take away from the fact that guns scared me growing up, and they still do.
Right. It's not like you were desensitized by it just because you were
right.
around it. It still very much scares you. Yeah.
Right.
So the first theory we hear is maybe it was related to an enemy Butch made during his tenure, or had the bullet come from outside from one of the outdoor shooting ranges. Then they show this last possibility, the nearby railroad tracks. Get this, where kids have a history of taking shots at the air gun building. Full stop. What? Who are these kids? What are they shooting at the building with? Where are their parents? Whose gun are they using? How has this happened enough times that there's a history of this?
I think that they should have water guns in a pool. You're in the South, go play with a water gun. Don't shoot the side of a building.
Now we meet Larry Fletcher, the firearms expert conducting the ballistic examination, and he finds that the bullet was barely damaged and that it was a homemade bullet.
I have in my notes in capital letters, homemade bullet. In parentheses, it says mouth to floor.
This particular bullet is a hand-loaded or hand-made bullet. It's not a commercial-made bullet in which they can add other materials to the lead and make it much harder. It can withstand a lot of damage upon impact.
We are told it does tend to be a common practice among competitive shooters, and Butch tells us it's simply for cost savings. Now that they know that it's a homemade bullet, it is most likely coming from someone's gun at the shooting range. So that cuts out the other two scenarios, the other two theories. Thank goodness it eliminates the kids on the railroad tracks.
Thank goodness. Take guns out of children's hands.
So then we get to a part where Larry is explaining the bullet's powder charge, and even Peter is like, okay, basically, let me break this down for you guys. I appreciate it, Peter.
Basically, the shooters used bullets with more gunpowder. More gunpowder means these bullets travel farther and faster than a regular .45 caliber bullet.
Now we get into the ballistics comparisons with the guns that were being used at the competition that day.
All the guns were turned in after this, correct?
Yes. Since it was a closed event that day, they were able to keep track of everyone that was at the event.
Let's do a ballistics recap, shall we?
Each gun was tested, fired, and compared to that fatal bullet.
Fletcher can't get an exact match.
Why is that?
Why, let me tell you. The extra gunpowder made it really hot when it was fired.
This melted some of the distinguishing marks.
But Fletcher is a real Nancy Drew.
He noticed a red wax on the fatal bullet.
All shooters use a lubricating wax, silly.
But only one gun from the competition that day used a red wax. Are we following any of this? Because there's been a lot of ballistics talks the past 2 episodes.
And you know what's funny is I thought about this too, like the word ballistic, it was like bullet. Did you ever think about that?
No, I was just thinking of someone going ballistic.
I was thinking bulletistic. I guess that really didn't make sense. Like a bulletistic?
Ballitistics?
Ballitistics. Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of ballistics talk in the past few episodes, and it is very hard to keep track. But I do think that this episode has done a great job in explaining detail by detail about what we should be following in the timeline of things.
We learned that Dan Smith is the owner of this gun that fired the lethal bullet, and he was in fact firing on the outdoor range just behind the air gun building where Trey was sitting in the supposedly safety area.
Waiting area.
He was sitting in a seat inside.
Right. I felt like this name, Dan Smith, came out of nowhere. We learned that all the guns were turned in that day to the police department, but then the name Dan Smith kind of just popped out of their mouth.
We never have an interview with Dan Smith. I even tried looking up more on this
Me
case.
too.
I couldn't find anything about Dan Smith. It's actually strange that there is not more information compared to like the other stuff we've done in these other episodes. Like there was just nothing out there on this.
Right.
And this actually, though, this next point that they kind of just brush past us too is that police are satisfied with just closing it as an accident.
Which is so weird.
This is why at first I was like, these cops seem really determined to investigate this fully. But then all of a sudden they're like, we're satisfied.
Yeah, and I totally get why you said that earlier. To just close it as an accident made me think that just because it's a gun range, they don't want to make it seem like there was an actual murder there. You know?
Right. Well, going beyond that is it's not just any public gun range. The police officers have a very close tie to this gun range, and I will get to that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is why my opinions have shifted on this.
Okay.
There is a very close relationship with the local police, and I'll get to that at the end, but it's very, very interesting. Now, sweet Papa Butch, he puts his state trooper hat on because just like us, he is like, this does not make sense, and he just can't accept that.
Yeah, any person would never accept that, especially him being in the law enforcement.
No loving parent would accept that, facing this kind of nightmare. But God damn it, they show that reenactment again.
Again.
Third time.
Now
We kind of get into a little bit more about gun ranges. Butch really strongly believes that they are supposed to be safe. Accidents aren't supposed to happen. And we learn that this poor man has even won gun safety awards.
I just have mixed feelings about this because if you are winning awards for gun safety, I don't think that you should be having your 14-year-old son going to a gun range. Is this wrong for me saying? I don't know.
I don't know. Everyone has different opinions on that.
Yeah.
However, if there's a gun safety award, who's losing that competition?
Oh, yeah. I never thought about that.
Maybe it's just a spirit award. It's like the cheerleaders version of a spirit award. I don't know.
Right. I think that this little piece of information, hearing that that Butch has won this award kind of makes sense as to why we learn as he went into this next direction of really investigating how and why this happened because of the answers that he didn't get.
100%. So let's go through the evidence range recap. So this is going to happen a lot because there is a lot of evidence and the processes they go through. So we're just kind of like breaking it up into chunks so that we can keep moving forward but keep everyone on track. The ballistics report says the fatal shot came from a gun fired from an outdoor range.
But Trey was inside.
And the owner of the gun said he didn't miss a shot.
So there were no bullets unaccounted for.
And even if there was, the range is designed to contain any stray bullets.
How so?
Well, there is a barrier between the airgun building and the outdoor firing range.
It's called a berm.
A small mountain of dirt 12 feet high.
The berm is right behind the targets.
Above the targets are a series of wooden planks called
baffles. They're designed to catch bullets that go higher than the berm.
Then there are two more sets of
baffles. One a little in front of the firing line set up high.
And another right at the firing line.
Called an eyebrow.
Are you taking notes? Because there will be a quiz at the end.
When this part of the episode came up and they said all of these descriptions of the safety barriers, berms, baffles, and eyebrows, I wrote down in my notes, berms, baffles, and brows. Sounds like a perfect coffee table book.
Or an esthetician's office. Like, I would definitely get my eyebrows and my berms fixed there.
We hear a lot about these berms, baffles, and eyebrows throughout the rest of this episode, but we had to get through that moment for me. Even with all of this safety talk and what these things are, I'm sorry, I just still don't feel...
That's okay.
Feel like they are. I don't feel like they're safe enough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, this one is definitely not. We meet Ken Buster, and he is a safety management consultant with years of experience as a shooter and a special expertise in firing ranges.
Between the eyebrow, the baffles, and the height of the berm, the vast majority of any stray bullet would be stopped.
Safety should be the number one priority in everybody's mind anytime that you participate in marksmanship as a sport. Something was wrong there.
Something was indeed wrong, Butch. Something was definitely very, very wrong.
He hires his little brigade of investigators, and this is where the case really takes a turn. And thank God for Butch, because there are so many times where I feel like he could have just bailed.
Absolutely, especially with all the grief he had. When you do lose a child, the physical actions of parenting get removed, and you try to do anything in your power on this earth to still parent them, you know?
Right.
And still give those actions of parenting. And I feel like when they say he begins his personal crusade, I feel like this was him still being the best dad he could for Trey.
Right.
And so he begins his personal crusade to find the truth that leads him to hire attorney Mike Schmidt to find out where the system failed. And that's when we meet the brigade, the investigative team. Steve, not the crocodile hunter Irwin. He is the accident reconstructionist. How do people find themselves in these kinds of careers?
I'm going to rewind for a second because we need to go back to in this video that shows Mike Schmidt. His desk is very cluttered. If I walked into his office and I was hiring him, I would probably be like, nope. Thank you so much. And I don't think that you're going to get the job done because you have a very messy desk.
Where is he supposed to put all these files? It's not the digital age.
The video is showing him like going through a bunch of papers, like, and then he's got papers on his desk.
Mike, the camera crew is coming. Clean up your desk. Make it at least look like you're organized.
Yeah, exactly. Now after we meet Steve, not the crocodile hunter Irwin, we do get to now finally see where, who, and how this amazing model of the gun range came from. Were you impressed by this?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of looked like a beta version of Sims, but I had to remember.
Remember, we're in the 90s.
I know. So I was trying to appreciate that. He creates an exact computerized dimensional scale model of the airgun building and the ranges. He does this using a bunch of those tools that I've truly only ever seen people using on construction sites when I'm driving past them. It's like that yellow tripod thing, that like laser measures.
Using laser technology, precision measuring devices, and sophisticated computer programs, Irwin would also uncover the path of the bullet.
You wind up starting at, unfortunately, the young boy getting shot and then working your way backwards.
So the police already have some clues for the team to start with. The outside wall of the airgun building was riddled with bullet holes from all angles.
Isn't that berm supposed to stop them?
There were bullet holes outside and inside the building.
Inside.
There's bullet holes in a sheetrock strip installed to protect a light fixture.
Wait, so the range knew?
And more bullet holes in the wall that separated the indoor range from a storage shed.
So gun range employees are just dodging bullets while they get the broom from storage.
But it's the fresh gouge in the ceiling tile that leads Mr. Irwin to find the lethal bullet's path.
Oof.
Yeah.
When you see, I mean, I don't know if this was like this for you, but when you see it drawn out and also pointed out with the model, it just seems like a very long path for a bullet to travel.
It does. But then the sad part is when we get into this model, you see that this space was not a big space at all.
Right.
All of this evidence leads back to Dan Smith.
From Trey, through the sheetrock strip, off the ceiling tile, and through the back wall. It seemed unlikely, but it matched the evidence.
So the mapping device they're using, I know I've made jokes about crickets on this podcast. This is actually literally a cricket. Like, it's the same technology that a cricket uses. So the findings, like I said, it all leads back to Dan Smith, and he was the shooter. But it does not lead back to the firing line. It leads to 10 yards in front of the firing line. So now we're back to Ken Buster, and he gets real with us.
At the time and now, I still think that was the worst range that I have ever seen.
He found dozens of potentially deadly safety flaws.
Let's go through all of the safety flaws in the building from top to bottom, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
Remember that berm behind the airgun building?
It's supposed to be 20 feet.
This one was 12.
Remember the
Baffles
above the
berm
and above the firing range in multiple spots?
They were far below standard height.
Those
Baffles
of wooden planks should have steel or concrete backings.
But these janky-ass baffles were just wooden planks that had been separated,
leaving big gaps for the bullet to whiz through.
So they were essentially pointless.
Yep.
Remember those bullet holes in the back of the building?
They'd been plugged.
So the range can't claim ignorance.
Those plugs are their undoing.
But why did the path of the bullet end a few yards away from the firing line, you ask?
It was due to a monumental blunder.
So Peter says it's a monumental blunder, and you know what, Peter? You are absolutely correct. It is that
100%.
and so much more. So we're told during the competition, shooters were required to fire from several distances. From the firing line, it's 25 yards. Then they move forward to 20 yards.
But let's talk about between the 20 and the 15. They have to go under the eyebrow, which is a safety wall.
Yeah, they go under the eyebrow and a set of baffles. So you're already under two. The distance of these shooters explains why the fatal bullet's path stopped. Or should we say, actually, it began 10 yards away from that original firing line. So now they have it all mapped and there's an explanation for it. So yes, you're right. They've now bypassed two safety barriers. Could it maybe have changed its course if it hit that instead? Possibly.
But I just want to know, why is there a competition constructed to go under safety barriers to fire a gun? I have to have a very long conversation with my father.
That part's above my pay grade of nothing for this podcast. So not only does moving the shooters forward to that 15-yard line put Dan Smith in front of those two protective barriers, from that distance, we're told that you can see the airgun building. And that's when we hear,
If you can see it, you can shoot it.
Oh, I hated that line.
ooh, me too. Overall, this range was insanely dangerous. It was only a matter of time before someone was killed. And so the evidence shows that the fatal bullet flew under the last baffle, over the berm, and into the building. Dan Smith apparently missed the target high and to the left by more than 5 feet, which is not common for a trained marksman like Dan.
But then we understand why Dan Smith's gun fired in the way that it did, right? So we learned that his gun has actually been modified. People in shooting competitions can shave down parts of their gun so that it can actually fire faster than a normal gun would.
I was like, this can't be legal. There's certain modifications to your car that aren't even legal.
It kind of felt like, why are you modifying your gun? If you bought this gun for a shooting competition, why do you need to modify it? That sounds like cheating.
100% feels like cheating. Yes. So Detective Taylor even actually just randomly pops back up. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. And he tells us that it's like taking a standard car and turning it into a hot rod. And that is terrifying when you're talking about a weapon.
Right. Don't cheat. don't modify your gun. And if it can't shoot fast enough, I'm sorry.
Or just like get better.
Right.
Work on your finger flexes. I don't know. We learned that it's common for competitive shooters to file down these parts of their guns, but this can also cause the shooter to sometimes fire off 2 rounds instead of 1. Because it's firing off so fast, which is called doubling. Or It's also, I think, called slam firing. I don't know. Detective David Taylor mentions that at the end. When you file it down too much, you've basically ruined the gun. This is not supposed to happen, but it can. It's kind of like you've messed up because you've filed down a certain part, so it let an extra round out.
Okay.
Anyways, they say in the episode that this is why he wouldn't possibly know that another bullet went out.
Oh, but that's why he probably said that all of his bullets were accounted for because he didn't realize that there was a second one that was fired.
Right. So he doesn't even know his gun is doing this, which goes back to our argument of like, this is not safe.
Yeah, and don't modify your gun if this is a possibility that this could happen.
I guess modifying your gun is like super common. So, I don't know. This is not my world. This is not my world. This is not Drew's world.
Yeah, I know.
This is so uncomfortable to talk about.
Trying to wrap my head around all of this is just like, it's hard.
I'm just trying to keep it facts without giving my opinions on all of this.
I know, I am the same.
But it's also just not a part of my life. So
here we are.
Here we are. Okay. Peter, though, is here for the people, and he explains to us what a recoil is. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
A recoil is the backward force created by the explosion pushing the gun up in the air.
Now we meet Kirk Parks, who is tasked to create a fact-based animation on what happened.
Okay, although I did think that this was X-Files, I am learning a lot about forensics, but the fact that there is forensic animation, I'm thoroughly impressed because I did not realize that this is even a thing.
Yeah, maybe you'll just change your career, Drew. Maybe this is your calling.
Oh my gosh, Danielle, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. My head hurts after every time we record an episode.
How Kirk gets his animation is he creates a video of shooting a .45 caliber pistol to then create a computerized reproduction of the recoil. He created an animation competitive shooter as well, entered it in with Steve, not the Crocodile Hunter, Irwin's laser findings, and the bullet path. I still don't know why they're not just like in the same department.
Steve? Yeah, Kirk here. Do you just want to like join forces and like double team this?
This recreation, it produces the same recoil path of up and to the left, which is what they noticed of the path of the bullet that left Dan Smith's gun.
Right, and this goes back to the fact that we realize that there must have been the doubling fact of how the gun was shot. This is now explained in further detail.
Do we really think Dan Smith did not know his gun did that?
See, that was a thought that came across my head too.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're shooting a gun, if your gun shot accidentally twice, you would know if you're a professional shooter if this happened to you. But here we are.
Then Kirk just kind of deflates all of our hopes and dreams of any of this answering any of our questions when we hear...
I can't say for sure that the gun doubled, but all of the evidence seems to indicate that it did, and it fired during the uncontrollable recoil.
Oh my gosh. Can we get your updated resume and everything?
When I heard that, I was just like, I just feel like I wasted a lot of my time investing these emotions into all of these facts.
And up into this for 1991, I was impressed with all of the details and all of these examinations and findings and lasers and sets. I felt like this was really going in a great direction until I heard him not feel very confident with what his findings were.
Okay, so now there is a final reenactment to wrap up the final theory that all of these reconstructions have left us with. Are you ready to take this ride with me, Drew?
I think so. Let's just do it.
On September 29th, 1991, Dan Smith is outside on the firing range behind the airgun building.
He steps up to the 15-yard line, moving him in front of 2 sets of safety baffles.
But we know now that the
baffles
were shit, and the
berm
was shit, and the range
was shit.
Using a modified gun, Dan Smith fires a shot.
But in a fraction of a second, another shot is fired.
This is suspected to happen during the recoil phase of the original shot.
And it happened so fast that the shooter didn't even know it happened.
The stray bullet misses the target.
It passes under and over the shameful protective barriers.
It blasts through the aluminum siding.
Goes through the storage room.
Missing a broom and pipes by less than an inch.
Breaks through a second wall, entering the air gun range.
Peter then says the bullet does something unbelievable.
What does he call everything up until this point?
Because I'm finding this all very pretty unbelievable myself.
The fatal bullet strikes an ordinary ceiling tile.
Instead of continuing through the tile,
For some unexplainable, unfair reason, it skids along the tile for 7 inches.
then mysteriously changes its direction.
Makes a 10-degree turn and begins its downward path.
It even penetrates a plaster wall, and still nothing stops it.
Nothing stops it from striking poor Trey Cooley. It completely makes sense to me now that we're at this point of why this episode is called The Magic Bullet. I don't know if they should say magic, because I don't think that that's the correct term. I think it should say...
The tragic bullet.
Yeah, the tragic bullet.
And then Butch just shatters our heart into a million pieces again.
What's peace? You just take it a day at a time.
Change just one thing, and Trey Cooley might be alive today. No explanation can ease the pain felt by a father who woke his son early one September morning.
Should have let him sleep.
You know the saying, in the right place at the right time?
Yeah.
I feel like this is the complete opposite
Right.
for this poor kid. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time and had to like go through all of these scenarios of, was there a murderer? But facts are he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Which I think is harder to wrap your logical
Right.
brain around. Now, there was a lot of human error
A lot of human error.
because of the range.
The Cooley family filed a negligence lawsuit against the gun club and individuals involved in the competition. We do see a text at the end of the episode stating that they have received more than $3 million in settlements.
It also says that the Dallas Pistol and Revolver Club soon closed the outdoor firing range and modified its other facilities to conform to proper safety specifications.
I mean, I just have a problem with this, because why do you need someone to die in your gun range to then
Right.
realize that so many things are wrong with your building?
Amen. Amen. You shouldn't need it to take that to
Right.
cause you to actually modify your other facilities. Like, I do have one update. I was not able to find many updates, and this episode didn't really require me to go off base or have any of like my true crime lessons. I found one article that just so happened to almost mistakenly mention the old club's original name. I found this article on dallasnews.com. I was trying to find out more information about the Pistol and Revolver Club.
Yeah.
I could not find that it even existed on Google. Now, granted, it was closed, if this happened in 1991 and it closed soon after that, Google's not a thing.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But then I keep finding Dallas Pistol Club. And then I'm seeing pictures, and they said that they closed their outdoor firing range, but I'm seeing pictures of a renovated outdoor firing range that looks
Very similar.
yeah, it looks very, very similar. So then I find one single article that almost mistakenly mentioned that it was the former Dallas Pistol and Revolver Club. That it's the same place. So it seems like the outdoor firing range reopened. Yeah, it does look a lot more safe. However, I don't know if they're just trying to push some heavy PR, but I need to read some quotes from people that have been members of this place when it was public, because now it's a private club and there's like a 5-year waiting list to get in it. You can still come as a guest, but yeah, it's a 5-year wait list. Victor Black remembers visiting the former Dallas Pistol and Revolver Club location with his father, a bullseye competitor, when he was around 11 or 12, and he has followed in his father's footsteps, maintaining a lifelong membership to what is today the Dallas Pistol Club. So now that's where I got it was the former Pistol and Revolver Club. Now it's this exclusive.
So they accidentally dropped the bomb.
I think they accidentally did that. Kimball Marquardt has been a member of DPC since the mid-1970s. DPC, this Dallas Pistol Club didn't exist. It was the Pistol and Revolver Club, right?
Right.
And he said, I've practiced shooting at public ranges, but joined the Carrollton Club because he just wanted a nice, responsible place to shoot.
What?
Then, doesn't end there. He goes on to say, I have seen some scary things at some public ranges. Not to say that never happens anywhere else, but when you have a limited access club, I think it's a lot closer monitored on the actions.
Oh, shit.
If you've been a member since 1970s, there's no way you didn't know what happened to Trey Cooley.
Right. I mean, that seems like they forced a review, like for like some PR just to like get the new name of what this club is things.
Right. They just throw this out here. The club has also added concrete walls and baffling in 2007. The club regularly updates its safety rules and has formed a safety committee. The club has concrete walls, thank God, and high dirt berms on the west side that provides a barrier between it and the new soccer fields that have opened around the range. Mm-hmm.
They put soccer fields around this after knowing what happened.
Well, it's really, I read that it's really built up around this range now. The city has.
Yeah, but they also thought that those berms was high enough.
I agree. Now, here is my theory as to why the police were satisfied to close Trey's case as an accident so quickly. Assistant Police Chief Mike Martin says in this article, Carrollton officers have trained at the facility since the 1970s. The police department previously shared an informal agreement with the Pistol Club to use the facility. It gets worse. The former police classroom was used for about 20 years, Martin said, and was in need of an update. By the time it was replaced, the plywood floor had holes in it. It's funny, we have photographs of the little old building out there. It was actually built, I'm told, as part of a movie set.
Oh my gosh.
So you know it wasn't built to be there very long.
Way to drop the bomb. I mean, like, I already was uncomfortable before with this whole thing, but that little tidbit of information makes me, like, more angry. Oh, my gosh.
I know. I also read that it's in, like, an urban location, and that's another person commented how convenient it is for the commute since it's in an urban location. And I'm like, I'm sorry, gun range and urban location should not be a thing. And the reason why I'm pretty sure this is still the same place is they talk about the railroads. The railroad being really close. So I'm like, this has to be the same location. But I kept trying to dig and dig to be like, to get like an address.
This makes me feel like they really covered this up.
Ooh, that don't
I know,
look
that
good.
does not look good. Well, okay, this episode, Danielle, was frustrating in a different way than the past episodes for me because I felt like I was more frustrated at wanting to know who the killer was rather than wanting to know why something like this exists.
Yep, that's so well said. I think that says it all right there.
But thank you for getting me frustrated in a different way this time. As Miley Cyrus said it best, it's... What is it?
I don't know.
I really wanted to make that quote. But anyways, okay.
The only quote I can think of from a pop artist is Taylor Swift when she says life is emotionally abusive. And that's how I feel about this episode. Okay, now for our missing person cases that we would like everyone to know about. From the Black and Missing Foundation's website and WUSA9.com, DC police are asking for the public's help locating two girls who were last seen together in Northeast DC on Thursday, December 28th, 2023. The two young girls were last seen around 10 p.m. in the 4400 block of Eads Street, Northeast, just a couple blocks east of Fort Mahan Park. Nevaeh Orellana, 13, is described as being 5'3" and 130 pounds with brown eyes and black hair. She was last seen wearing a black puffer coat, black Ugg boots, black sweater, black pants, and a pink camouflage headscarf. Cassidy Walker, 11, is described as being 5'4" and 122 pounds with brown eyes and black hair. She was last wearing a white shirt, multicolored Ugg boots, and a black and pink jacket with butterflies on it. Anyone who sees either of them should call the police department's Command Information Center at 202-727-9099 or the Youth and Family Services Division at 202-576-6768. You can also submit information to the Black and Missing Foundation's tip line at Black and Missing Inc. That's inc.com/tipline.
And from the Bureau of Indian Affairs.gov and IowaColdCases.org is the case of Rita Papaki, a 41-year-old mother of four. She vanished January 16, 2015 after leaving the Meskwaki Bingo Casino Hotel near Tama, Iowa. Family members reported her missing to the Meskwaki Nation Police in Tama on February 18, 2015. The police are asking for assistance to help locate her. After she went missing, police said they believed she may be in the Des Moines or Cedar Rapids area. Meskwaki Nation authorities offered a $25,000 reward for information leading to her location, and in January 2019 doubled the reward to $50,000. Rita Papaki was 41 years old at the time she went missing, and is described as a 5'3" Native American weighing between 170 and 200 pounds. She has long brown hair and brown eyes. If you know where Rita J. Papaki might be or have information leading directly to her whereabouts, please contact Detective Kimberly Schwartz at the Meskwaki Nation Police Department at 641-484-4844. You can also submit case information or tips to the BIA one of 3 ways. Text BIA-MMU and your tip to 847-411. Call in tips to 1-833-560-2065 or email capital letters OJS_MMU@BIA.gov. We will also post this case information on our Instagram at Forensic Files Podcast. But first, please go and follow at Black and Missing FDN and MMI Who Is Missing.
If you like our podcast, please drop a review to tell us what you think. But before I get into the other details, I'd love, Drew, can you read our very first real Apple review?
First review. And honestly, I literally texted Danielle. I was like, do you know this person? Did you have someone review us like this? Because props to you for like doing the effort to that. But like, also I need to know because I almost cried reading this. Did you not?
I felt the same way. I was like, this isn't someone we know, right? This isn't our moms.
I need to read it. So to the username Amber May Emery, the subject line is Deep Dives, Interesting Commentary. She gave us a 5-star review. Thank you, Amber, and wrote this amazing review. And it says, I love true crime podcasts, and I subscribe, pay money to listen to several. I love them all, but I need a break from all the murder and sadness. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about these two yucking it up about Forensic Files, but honestly, it isn't like that at all. They give a description about the episode, and then while discussing deep dives and informative content, they joke around with each other and laugh at each other, never the victims or the situation. These two have obviously been friends for a very long time and keep the conversation very entertaining. I'm the beautiful wallpaper listening into these two friends discuss my all-time favorite TV shows. Hope you give it a listen.
I'm the beautiful wallpaper.
I mean, how poetic is that?
So poetic, Amber. Thank you so much.
Honestly, you have given us motivation to keep going because times have been tough, and we are learning as we're going, and lessons have been learned.
I'm going to come to everybody with my humble request that if you like our podcast, please drop a review to tell us what you think. But most importantly, there's a couple of things that we've learned about the algorithm with Apple Podcasts specifically. So, gonna get a little technical here, but this whole episode has been this way, so I think we're all used to it. When you're in Apple Podcasts, please hit those 3 little dots on our podcast page at the top and select follow, and that will subscribe you to our podcast. But then tap settings and turn on automatic download.
It's all about the automatic download.
Automatic download. I know these are a lot of steps, but I've learned that this algorithm has changed. It's a bit harder for podcasts to be recommended now. So this would just really, really help us out. And it's a bonus for you if you do like the podcast, because then every time we release a new episode, it'll just be ready for you to listen no matter where you are in the world.
And if you listen anywhere else, a review and follow would also be great. Anything to help us spread the word. We don't have the numbers to monetize the podcast yet, so we're creating this with our blood, sweat, and occasionally Danielle's tears.
So many tears. That is a wrap on episode 4. How do you think we did?
I think I'm positive about it.
I feel positive. I feel good. I hope it's not the drinks, but...
I feel like there were a lot of B words that I just want to really make into a really intense tongue twister and submit it to all the acting schools out there.
Just create an acting book with 1 page.
Drew's tips to success for acting. Burbs, baffles, busters, and brows. Say that 3 times and you'll book your first job, next job, and every job in between.
Throw away the breakdown. Just walk in and say,
Burbs, baffles, busters, and brows. You want to read a monologue? Don't do it. You want to do a 16-bar cut of your favorite song? Don't do it. Just sing. Berms, brows, busters, and
baffles. So I want to just let everybody know our next episode will be Expert Witness. It is from season 14, episode 21, and it is the 400th episode of the show. I know, it aired on June 17th, 2011, and we will just have to wait and see if we ever leave the 90s.
Oh, God, I hope so. I really hope so. Oh, my gosh, we did it. Thank you all so much for listening, and we cannot wait for you to hear this episode and all the ones to come.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.
Love you guys. Okay, who's first? Heidi.
Me.
You.
Heidi.
Heidi.
Nope. Let's...
Okay.
The lizard killer.
I don't know.
I'm just picturing one of those T-Rex suits.
But then he secretly murders everyone around him.
It's like disarming because he has little arms. Like, you can't stab me with those little T-Rex arms.
Little do you know.
Our episode recaps will alternate. My God, my son is banging on the door right now.
I can't hear a thing.
If anyone hears someone aggressively banging, no one is at my door trying to get in, and I'm just aimlessly ignoring it.
It might add some good background noise since we're doing a true crime podcast.
Yeah. Is the host getting currently murdered? Okay. She might be.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to find out.
If she's dead.
I need a minute.
You know what I'm going to say next? Buster Burns baffles and brows.
Every time before we start an episode,
Buster Burns baffles and brows. Copywriting that. I'm copywriting that.
New year, new us, new episode. Here we go.